Hi, welcome to Up Your Nerd Cred. Did you used to know everything that was happening in the Marvel and DC universes? Did finding out that some superheroes are Marvel and some are from DC blow your mind? Has keeping track of everything that's happening there, and then realizing that we're only talking about the comics universes, not the cinematic ones, and all the different universes with their own multiversal crises have gotten a little bit out of hand? Well, don't worry. Up Your Nerd Cred is here to talk about the gods cosplaying as men, the men cosplaying as gods, and how much the cinematic universes are really leaving out. At the end of each episode, you'll hopefully know a little bit more than you did and can up your nerd cred. I'm your casual nerd host, CiCi. I love being a hostess. I love having people at my house, and several of our friends are here this week, and I gotta tell you, I'm so glad that my house is empty. I love you all. Get out of my house. Oh, yay! AM, how about you?
I am your expert nerd host, AM Diaz, who is less than a day away from the first big con of the season, a WonderCon, and I'm actually not too stressed out this year. Of course, the night is still young, so.
I was gonna say, who are you and what have you done with my friend? What do you mean you're not stressed out the night before a con?
My costumes are packed, makeup is ready, new contact lenses. Honestly, the biggest stress is just going to be meeting my friend tonight, because we're going to drive down together.
Wait, I'm sorry. I just want to double check. Your friend isn't somebody who we've had as a guest in the pod before, right?
Why, yes, it is. It is our dear friend, London Heartsew. And you guys should totally listen to the episode with London where we talk about toys.
Season 2, episode 1. I used to play with myself. All right, now, I want to make sure that we're on the same page, though. Okay, right? Now, our cosplay expert, right? He ain't new to it, all right? He's true to it. And he's also our resident expert nerd, despite how much he tries to downplay it. So I will ask him like all kinds of burning questions all the time. Or just because we are clarifying the format does not mean that we are going to skip out on the format altogether. Of course, right? Guys, listeners, what are we nerding out about this week? Now, as a reminder, you can nerd out about all kinds of things. It does not have to be just heroes and villains, okay? The new Spider-Man trailer is out, even though I low-key don't watch trailers anymore because I am really excited to go in blind, and I'm really excited to go see the new Spider-Man. The new Daredevil is out, and as soon as I can get 2.5 minutes to myself to watch it without my kid there, I'm so excited. Oh, also, speaking of things that are out, Pete Hegseth knows he's got like 20 minutes, right? Really? I'm sure he knows. Anyway,
Yeah.
Ian, what are you nerding out about?
I'm nerding out in mourning because sadly, Star Trek Starfleet Academy has been canceled. It will only get one more season and it will not be returning.
Boo.
And everyone is giving Paramount some side-eye, considering how much Paramount has been, bending the knee to certain political people of an orange persuasion.
There's multiple Star Trek properties that are out there, which shout out to a certain lady later in the show. Aren't there? Was this the one where like Tig and Gina Yasher and?
Yep. Yeah, that's been canceled. And then, of course, there's the unfortunate news that, I don't know if you talked about this last week, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, New Sunnydale will not be moving forward.
Yeah, I believe we mentioned that, but didn't like go too deep into it. And I don't know who it is that I need to fight. I'm hoping that it's not
It's
Joss.
a male executive. No, it's not Joss because he's not allowed to be anywhere near this production.
Oh, but Michelle Trachtenberg isn't attached.
R.I.P. Michelle Trachtenberg.
Yes, we do miss Michelle.
But no, apparently it was some producer at Hulu, according to Sarah Michelle Gellar, who prided himself on the fact he had never watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer and had no, connection to it and honestly didn't care and seemed gleeful about that idea. Oh, yeah, Sarah Michelle has not been quiet about the fact that this thing that we've been waiting for years has been killed by a certain asshole.
Okay, I knew that the show had been canceled, and I was pretty salty about this, and it's not because I'm a millennial of a certain age, because again, we are young and youthful and beautiful, and if you say anything otherwise, you are obviously incorrect. But it was because this guy is just like, I didn't watch Buffy the first time.
Essentially,
This is the kind of bullshit that led to Multiverse of Madness having a Wanda that made absolutely no sense
with everything
because
that
they
happened
didn't
before.
actually, yeah, because they didn't actually like look at the source material at
Yep.
all. Wow. I'm gonna nerd out about something completely separate, okay? So I told you guys last week that like I had my nibblings here, and it's not just like my nibblings because, like last week Matthew told you about how like, we had a number reference here, and I have actually been able to have several of my friends and family over the last couple of weeks stay and be able to sit there and be like, I can go to New York because it is something that is not as cost prohibitive for me as it could be. And I'm really, really excited about the fact that like people are able to come and visit me in what is honestly my favorite city.
I don't like dealing with the winters. I don't like the idea of eventually ending up at a place I have to like wake up early mornings to shovel snow or something like that.
All right, well, we're going to take a quick break to sit there and have a moment where we remind each other that the fact that like we did shovel snow in our youth and it's not the end of the world, and we'll be back to up your
The end of
nerd
my
friend.
world.
Welcome back. So, podcast listeners, as we're wrapping up Women's History Month, it's kind of important to make sure that we are recognizing the point that women have been here. We have been here the whole time, okay? I know there have been rumors to the contrary.
Gasp.
Right? I know that there's a whole lot of people who are convinced otherwise, but women have been here in the trenches of nerd culture, and we've been like a lot more instrumental in making sure that things are happening than we've been given credit for, right? Like, think about it. Like, whenever there's somebody who is cast as kind of like the nerd vibe, right? You think of like comic book guy. You think of the cast of Big Bang Theory, right? You think of some dude who is just like, actually, you are incorrect about some sort of thing. And realistically speaking, One actually is a very fun show on Dropout.tv. And I love Sam Rush, and that is why he is getting a quick free advertisement from me because he's a really good boss. But also, let's be honest, like to a certain extent, like the kind of people who are sitting there trying to actually us are not the kind of people who are actually interested in making sure that they have a full knowledge, awareness, and appreciation of people who have been here. Because a lot of them want to complain, though, like, oh no, women don't like nerds. Women can't be nerds. Women think that nerds are gross, and it's just like, no, guys, we just take showers and don't
The
Naruto run,
geeky gatekeeper.
right? Like, bro, come
This, yeah.
on.
Number of times I've actually heard people say, "Oh, girls don't like geek guys. Girls don't." It's like, dude, they like geek guys. They just don't like you because you are being creepy or rude or gatekeepy.
The fact that there are actual rules at various cons that say, like, hey, listen, if you want to come and be here, you have to like wash. Like if you want to come and play at our tournament, you have to make like there are deodorant rules and stuff like that because there's a lot of dudes who are choosing to say that it's because they are nerdy, because they like, anime and comic books and stuff like that, that women don't like them. And I cannot express to you enough that no, women love nerd shit
Hmm.
so much. Okay. So,
I have
all
surrounded
right.
myself by with so many nerdy women who, honestly, in many cases, are nerdier than I am, and that's saying something.
That takes work, okay? So just like, because there's a
Yeah, it's
lot
like
of nerdy shit that I have, right? Like, if you consider me to be kind of like master's level, and I do, by the way, I have a pretty substantive and extensive nerd knowledge, history, things of that nature. But, you have, like, AM over here who's sitting here living his most, like, doctoral plus life, right? He's got a lot of nerd knowledge and stuff like that. But also, with that nerd knowledge, we have a lot more women involved than I think, like I said, than we've been given credit for in many ways. So, right? Let's spend some time talking about the fact that after the Golden Age, there was a huge decline in the demand for a lot of like the big buff Nazi punching superheroes. We had Captain America, we had Superman, we had all of these, you know, like I said, Nazi
Nazi
punching
punchers.
heroes who were available. It's really weird how Nazi punching has become like controversial in 2026, but that's neither here nor there.
So true.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was also around the time of the, you know, Seduction of the Innocent novel or book, which resulted, unfortunately, in a lot of things from the Golden Age that was very popular. Horror, Nazi punching, stuff like that became no, no, no. And,
Yeah.
superheroes had to be completely heterosexual. They had to have more wacky adventures involving spacemen and no monsters or horror stories or murder stories.
Yeah. See, so basically, once we had the E Day and then we had the J Day, all of the ardor for superheroes was cooled. Now, was the ardor for superheroes cooled by the consumers, or was it cooled by the people who were in charge and being like, absolutely not. You are not allowed to sit there and think about yourself as the kind of person who would go out and punch a Nazi? We're done punching Nazis. Nazis are perfectly legitimate members of society, and Operation Paperclip is not a problem, but that's not what we're talking about anyway,
Yeah,
right?
I don't think it ever became proper. It just or accepted into society. More sweep it under the rug and act like it never happened.
Yeah. So, as far as things though that we are sweeping under the rug and think they don't happen, I would really like to highlight some of like the women creators that we've had, like, from the late 40s and on. We've had a number of people who've been involved in making sure that the stories that we have continued to be dynamic and active and true to life. So, I would like to highlight, for example, Dorothy Woolfolk. Has anybody thought about how kryptonite impacts, the DC universe? Well, you could thank Dorothy Woolfolk for inventing it. Okay. There's a number of things that she's created, but one of the things that she's like really known for is kryptonite. We also
Yep.
have
Before that, Superman had no overt weaknesses, and the introduction of kryptonite, which was first introduced in the radio series, that became a major factor in Superman's mythology going forward. And it led to a whole bunch of different storytelling, and it's all thanks to Dorothy.
I mean, think about how even in the most recent Superman's movie where, we have like the guy who's able to sit there and like generate all of these different,
Metamorpho,
metals or radiation or whatever. What was the name? Metamorpho,
Metamorpho, the
yes.
Element Man.
Yes. Yes. But here's the thing, like, Krypton or yeah, Krypton is actually like, a noble gas. So being able to create like sort of a crystallized form and kryptonite and everything is something that is very cool, and being able to sit there and pull the fact that there are radioactive shards of krypton and how that like planet and like how it in general interacts with Superman is something that we have had because of Dorothy, and put some respect on her name. um and let's make sure that, like, as we're putting respect on the names of women who are in comics, let's talk about how Xena Brody, right? She is a notable name if you're sitting there going in women's history in DC. She was actually like really big in making sure that like DC's women like comics actually had women's experiences and the like tones and things like that, like making sure that they were incorporated into the stories. So whenever there were actually like future people that she was working with, like John Romita Sr., who we have mentioned on more than one occasion in the pod, they're actually sitting there and making sure that they are noting her influence on what it is that they are doing and having actual women's thoughts, experiences, and things like that in the stories of, like, our characters.
Yeah, it's thanks to her that a lot of more iconic women characters have stuck around as long as they have. You know,
Yeah.
back in like the golden age, women were usually like the damsel in distress girlfriends. Then suddenly we're having like stories about Lois Lane and Wonder Woman and Batgirl and Supergirl, and these characters are not just reflections of their male counterparts; they're fully realized characters.
It turns out that women are more than just distaff counterparts to men. I know. Huge shock and surprise. I would like to make sure that we are not suggesting that DC is the main organization making sure that women are getting some shout outs, because we also have Marie Severin, right? Now, she was hired by Marvel in 1964 to manage production, right? But while she was there, she was, trying to sit there and manage a drawing for Esquire magazine. And the editor in chief of Marvel, Stan Lee. Have you heard of this guy, Stan Lee? Yeah. So he assigned her the feature of Doctor Strange in Strange Tales and Everything's, right? She was the third artist on the title, which is pretty impressive considering it's 1964 and women are not really allowed to do much of anything and didn't have their own bank accounts for another 10 years. But she was imp- like a major part of the creation of the Living Tribunal, who is what, second to the One Above All in the whole Marvelverse? Who else? Like, the Living Tribunal is pretty important, right?
Yeah, Living Tribunal is basically the personification of cosmic judgment and stuff like that. So it kind of helps keep everything balanced, and anytime a huge cosmic threat is there, there's the tribunal being like, I don't know about this. Let's have a court session in space.
I mean, look, also it's kind of wild that you've got, it's not quite like the full like id, ego, super ego, but like it does
No,
hit like,
like I say, it's a very much personification of, you know, justice, balance, and stuff like that.
it is also very handy basically to make sure that the One Above All doesn't necessarily get involved in any of the petty squabbles and stuff. It's kind of like sitting there suggesting that the One Above All in any other universe, perhaps ours, perhaps other, universes that we're like, writing about, like, the One Above All may not necessarily need to be as involved in things, and having the Living Tribunal available to like make sure that the One Above All can go and manage all of the other things is kind of useful, I think, right?
Yeah, yeah. Although, funny enough, according to the Fantastic Four, the one above all is, in fact, Jack Kirby.
Okay, well, we're gonna sit
They've
there and
literally had the stories where the Fantastic Four met God, and it turned out to be Jack Kirby, and that just warms my heart.
I'm not gonna lie though, as far as people who would be considered like a One Above All, Jack Kirby, I think, is kind of like the Woz to like the Steve Wozniak to the Steve Jobs of things. And so, Stan Lee has sat there and been great for being like the name and the face and things like that. He's all Excelsior and all that jazz, but I think that Jack Kirby has a lot of, like I said, Steve Wozniak kind of vibes and things like that. And
Yeah, a lot of the innovations and storytelling, Stan helped put Marvel on the map, but he could not have done it on his own. So many of the
absolutely not.
creators, Chris Claremont, Jack Kirby, countless others, Steve Ditko, it's like the only reason we have these characters is because, the community that was built and people that they brought in. And the thing that was great about comics, especially as we started moving forward, is they were happy to hire women creators and artists and
Yeah,
editors.
and I would like to highlight the fact that, like, yeah, we're sitting there talking about Steve and Jack and all, and Stan and all these folks. But one of the things that we have to really highlight within, like just the whole conversation about comics in general is the fact that post Golden Era, like really like the whole Silver Era and like leading into the Bronze Era, a lot of comic shops were able to stay open after like the superhero boom, after, we've had our various like, victories and things, a lot of them had to figure out how it is that they were able to stay open, and having women come in was one of the ways that they were able to do it, right? Like,
Yeah.
you don't
I mean,
necessarily
it
have as many superheroes running things.
yeah, it definitely helped. I mean, the problem the comic industry has always had is it's still a little bit of a boys' club. I mean, you still hear people who work at like DC saying how, there was only like one or two female creators when the New 52 was happening and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's like women creators a lot of times are the ones who do something new with the characters, because they try to tell
Yeah.
the stories that might be a bit more emotional, not maybe as action packed, but they develop the characters, and then they try new art styles or new approaches and stuff like that.
I'm sorry. I just want to double check. Are you suggesting that there are ways to grow a character besides punching?
Yeah, I
No.
mean, we got a lot. Like I say, it's a assemblage of different creators and stuff like that. But it's always good when you're having voices who oftentimes are not the ones
Centered?
exactly.
Yeah.
Especially one thing that's like I've loved about a lot of modern stories is the fact that women creators and people of color are being brought on and they're telling stories with characters that, reflect their experiences. And,
Mhm.
that's something that has been a slow progress, but
Yes.
it's always been something that they keep trying to do. I know that was something Stan Lee really wanted to push at Marvel. He wanted other people's voices involved.
So it's worth noting that, like, yes, we had a lot of like the civil rights movement in the 60s when Stanley and Jack Kirby had like a lot of say so in things. And realistically speaking, women have made up a pretty substantive amount of the nerd culture audiences and stuff, even when we're like largely ignored in the space. Even if there are some people who are trying to make sure that we have some focus, we are largely ignored. But it's worth noting though that like again, like, you have the golden age, and that's really the World War II era. And the silver and the bronze ages are coming. So like the silver age is happening during like the main like civil rights and women's lib era. So this is the time frame when you have a lot of people overall fighting to say like, hey, you can't just sit there and, like, tokenize us. You can't just sit there and put this in, like, these roles. Like, we have full lives and experiences outside of whatever it is that you may, kind of have slotted us into. Oh, wait, is that part of our season thing about, like, how you can be whatever it is that you're slotted into isn't that necessarily what it is that you are? That's not important. But no, like, we have a whole bunch of opportunities for people to sit there and be like, "Hey, I am not what it is that you think that I am." Right? And so we have a lot more like diverse characters being introduced, right? After we have more diversity in the writer's room.
But it was still a struggle because you still read some of those majority of the Silver Age stories. They are very much like let's treat them like the domesticated housewife character, or they just want to get married and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
they, you know, would keep trying to push that, but at the same time, you've got the writers and creators and people behind the scenes being like, okay, yes, we need to tell that story because that's what the Comic Code Authority demands. But
Mm.
let's do something different with them too. Let's, have them be crafty and smart, creative, powerful.
It's so wild to have, like, the conceit of, like, women being powerful or anything other than just able to sit there and make sure that there's dinner on the table if your boss happens to show up with his wife or whatever, right? But I from one of the things that's important, I think, for me to, like, point out is the fact that, like, we have an increase of, like, a diversity of characters as, we have more people coming into the writing room, but it's not just comics who are actually, like, increasing in the number of people who are, like, changing things up and making sure that we're not just, like, kind of being stuck in whatever it is that we've had before, right? I would like to highlight, for example, Lucille Ball.
A
Now,
queen of comedy and of sci-fi.
would like to point out that, like, I Love Lucy and The Lucy Show and things of that nature, that crazy redhead, she's had a whole lot of success and stuff that she was able to do with her, like, domestic comedies and such. But that lady was not just concerned about domestics, okay? She was concerned about everything. And when I say everything, I mean Lucille Ball saved Star Trek overall. Like Gene
Hmm.
Roddenberry had an idea and there was a pilot, and they're like, this pilot might be kind of expensive. And then there was a second pilot. They're just like, oh, we're not sure if we want to do this. I'm not sure if we want to do this. But I would like to point out the fact that, like, if you go to StarTrek.com, go directly to the source, they credit Lucille Ball with saving Star Trek.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, from what I understood, when it was pitched to her, Lucille was kind of like, I don't fully get it, but let's do it anyways.
mm-hmm.
Because, she thought it was a good idea. I mean, I don't know if she was like a huge sci-fi fan, but she put all of Desilu behind Star Trek, and Star Trek was and still is one of the most progressive sci-fi properties that has existed.
To make sure, again, that we are highlighting the fact that from StarTrek.com, they literally have said, Star Trek says this, okay? This is very important. Like, I don't care which version of Star Trek you're watching, okay? The base level is without the help of this woman and her studio, the franchise may have stalled and never seen the light of day. So all of the Trekkies need to make sure they are putting some respect on the fact that this woman sat there and was just like, you know what? Because her board of directors were like, this is too expensive. This is not going to do whatever it is that we want it to do, blah, blah, blah. And she's just like, no, no, no. I want this to happen. I'm going to make this happen. Do the thing. And because of that, you know, Star Trek has gone from just whatever it is that Jimmy Kirk was doing to the fact that we're able to sit there and yell and scream about Star Trek Academy, which is, oh my God, how many Star Trek spinoffs do we have? Do you know?
Oh, let's see. There's the OG Star Trek the
Mm-hmm.
Animated Series, Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise, Discovery, Strange New Worlds, Lower Decks, Starfleet Academy. God, what was that one with the kids? That was a Nickelodeon series.
Wait, I'm sorry.
God.
I did not know there was Nickelodeon Star Trek,
Oh yeah,
but
there's a Nickelodeon series that's almost a direct spin-off of Voyager, and it has Captain Catherine Janeway as both a supporting character and her hologram as the mentor for this group of alien kids who find an experimental Starfleet spaceship, and it leads into this story of them trying to make it to Starfleet, and then Commander Chakotay from the original Voyager series, and it's a whole thing, and it was a lot of fun, and I cannot remember what the name of it is.
it says, and it had Walter Manuel Jones and Jules State, but I'm not going to get too deep into it. What I will say is that I did a quick Google search while you were listing all of the names of things because
Oh, and don't
as
forget the
the
Kelvin timeline.
as the casual nerd of things, it's easier for me to just go ahead and Google and double check. And they say there's over a dozen. Apparently, there are 12 main series and 4 short form series, totaling roughly 990 episodes.
Oh yeah, it's like, for as much as I'm hating what Paramount is doing now, they really went full blown with the franchise during the last few years, especially when Discovery, Strange New Worlds, and Lower Decks were all coming out. They had a bunch of like animated shorts, and then they had like live action shorts, and and then of course,
So,
like I said, there's the movies.
yeah.
There's the original movies, the Next Generation movies, and the Kelvin Timeline movies.
Look, I will tell you that, like, we can have like a whole bunch of like conversation about like the odd versus even number movies. I'm not sure if Generations is an odd or an even. I'm pretty sure it's an odd because I love that movie. But that's like, look, honestly, as important as Lucille Ball is to basically Trekkies everywhere, and also side note, if you are any version of a Trekkie and you are not giving a shout out to Lucille Ball on a regular basis, you are incorrect. And I'm just gonna just throw that out there right now, okay? But as we have the kind of thing just like, Lucille Ball is making sure that we have Star Trek. We're making sure that everybody is able to see Star Trek. Uh, One of the things that we have because Star Trek is so successful is the establishment of slash fan fiction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which, funny enough, ties into Star Trek.
To sit there and get too deep into it, mostly because of the fact that slash fan fiction, a lot of the really early kind of discussions of it, the parts that you really think about are the part where it's Kirk X Spock fan fiction.
Yeah,
And
as fan fiction and shipping people has always been a thing, but when it became really part of geek culture would be around the time of the original Star Trek series. And we have women to thank for that because creators who were just like watching Star Trek and just going, there's something going on between Captain Kirk and Commander Spock.
yeah.
What if? And thus led to the creation of the Z.
Yeah, to a certain extent, there are a lot of women who decided that they wanted to sit there and get as socialist as possible with content in ways that they could do before TikTok and basically the YouTube and things like that existed. And that was to create
They
zines.
wrote so you could twerk.
They basically took what it is that they were interested into their own hands, and I absolutely mean that in all kinds of ways because Tijuana Bibles are not a part of the whole zine culture, and I'm not going to explain Tijuana Bibles. I'm just going to ask you to
I
go,
will.
sir.
So, Tijuana Bibles, for those unfamiliar, were little booklets of popular comic book characters getting up to very adult shenanigans. So, for people back then, if you wanted to see how hung Popeye was, you found a Tijuana Bible.
Not gonna lie, if you've seen any of the chick tracks, they have been based in part on Tijuana Bibles because of that kind of thing. And so I'm slightly salty that that man has sat there and tried to co-opt a beautiful passable
Smut.
porn situation. Yes, smut deserves
They
respect,
ruined
but
perfectly good smut by bringing Jesus into it.
completely separate from the fact that he did do that. We have the zines, we have a lot of underground instances where there's shops who are sitting there trying to figure out how to reconfigure themselves because of the fact there are so many during the Bronze Era. I should clarify. There's a lot of indie creators who are coming out and producing their own things. You've got your fan fiction as the entry point, and I would just like to point out the fact that I would like that archive of our own is very important. It is something that if you have any kind of fan fiction appreciation you have been to, but I grew up in the mean days of early internet, okay? And so I was on these Sailor Moon forums where there's a whole bunch of people who were just like, I am a big fan of this kind of thing. I would go and find the Sailor Moon fan fiction and stuff like that. And my favorite author back in the day was Alicia Blade. All right. I read everything that she put out on all of the forums multiple times. She was amazing. I sat there and just had a whole bunch of fun and excitement with that. And if you want to read any kind of Alicia Blade stuff, sure, you can go to any of the fan fiction kind of things, or you can go and find any of the books that Marissa Meyer has written, Cinder and things of that nature, because there's a whole lot of people who have gotten their start writing in general, practicing writing a whole bunch of stories, making sure things are consistent and things of that nature because they started their slash or fan fiction or whatever else kind of things that they were doing.
Yeah. So, for example, a very popular hockey LGBT romance series got
What?
its start as Avengers fanfic.
No.
Yes.
Oh my God. Okay.
Heated Rivalries was originally apparently Avengers fanfic about Steve and Bucky, I believe, in a
Oh,
more slice of life story as opposed to them being, superheroes. Yeah, that eventually progressed into the first story in the in that hockey series. And yeah. So, and
I swear, at some point, I'm going to watch Heated Rivalry, but it's probably going to be the bane of my existence this season because, like, again, it's not really something that's easy to watch when you have a toddler around. And
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and also another cultural phenomenon, quotation marks, the 50 Shades of Grey franchise was originally Twilight fan fiction.
yeah.
So there's good
Which
and bad.
honestly wasn't, I feel like Twilight was like a whole different kind of spin-off thing as it was, but 50 Shades of Grey, very specifically, that whole thing was a lot. And the fact that, like, Archive of Our Own had like the base level things of things, and it was able to be spun off into a book and then multiple books and then like a movie series. Basically, podcast listeners, if you have an original story idea, go ahead and write your book and work on submitting it, okay? Because if fan fictions are out here getting things, because we're not talking about like there is a Hermione fanfic, I think that has somehow gotten published recently. And
Oh, probably I feel like there's a dozen of them. Former, HP. I'm not sure if we want to name drop that franchise. That
I am going to name drop that franchise and I'm going to say, like, hey, podcast listeners, if for some reason you think that you can be big fans of Out for Your Nerd Cred and also fans of I name my characters Cho Chang and Kingsley Shacklebolt Joe Rowling, who writes under the name of Robert Galbraith, and is just like, let me spend all of my money that I have fighting trans people's existence.
the irony of that is the fact
The
that this woman who
podcast will
wrote in,
ask you to take
yeah,
exit stage left or right,
yeah,
whichever one you want to go. Get out.
yeah. Fuck transphobia. That is our official stance.
And if for some reason you think that Joe Rowling is not being transphobic, even though she has said that she wants to devote her money to this, eh, we do not agree with you. You know who, though, is not transphobic and is a delightful, like, way of people kind of learning about being queer and, you know, existing in general, making the magical girl genre something that's more exciting. I would like to shout out Naoko Takeuchi. Okay, she's entering the chat in the 80s and 90s and such. And now, while she's not a fan fiction writer the way that, we have a lot of, she actually sat there and wrote, like, I would like these girls to be my friends. So what kind of people would I like to be my friends? And so because of that, she creates Sailor Moon. She creates pretty much my personality, I'm not gonna lie. But she's able to sit there and be like, the magical girl framework, we can expand that. The people that you are going to want to see on TV, we can expand that. Naoko Takeuchi has gotten so many girls into anime and manga in ways that,
Mhm.
like, we were really not expecting. Because, there's a lot of it. Again, like, there's a lot of stereotypes and views of how, like, nerd culture is male coded. But Naoko Takeuchi is just like, what if I make sure this not all male coded? What if we sit there and highlight the fact that it's not just dudes? What if we make sure that the magical girls get like just as much shine as everybody else? And I am,
Yeah. Also, I still maintain Sailor Moon could kick Goku's ass. Yeah, come
oh
at me,
yeah,
nerds.
listen, the official podcast position is that Sailor Moon could kick Goku's ass, okay? If you are able to sit there and fight chaos for 1,000 years straight, and if Chaos's attacks destroy the entire universe, and your attacks restore the entire universe, and you're able to do that for 1,000 years straight, yeah, no, your spirit bomb can eat my ass.
That thing never works, anyways. But yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
the Sailor Moon franchise has inspired so many creators, so many fans. Like the number of times that superhero animation takes from Sailor Moon, the new My Adventures with Superman cartoon. First time we see Clark put on his costume, he has a full-blown Sailor Moon transformation thing. The Titans direct-to-DVD movies that they were doing, where it was Teen Titans, and I think it was like the Trigon storyline. They
Mhm.
actually show Starfire and the other Titans basically have magical girl transformations. And they're
Hey!
all inspired by Sailor Moon because Sailor Moon just didn't inspire women. It inspired men. Like back in the
Mhm.
90s, there's so many guys who were like, I don't watch Sailor Moon. Bullshit. They were sitting there
Bull!
watching it and loving every minute of it because nowadays, millennials, you talk to majority of millennial nerds and they're like, yeah, I watched Sailor Moon when it was on.
It's worth noting that Sailor Moon came on before Dragon Ball Z, so there are a whole bunch of people who are sitting there pretending that they only watched Sailor Moon because it happened to come on beyond before Dragon Ball Z. But let's be honest. Again, like I said, Sailor Moon is amazing, and she can sit there and, Sailor Moon could absolutely kick Goku's ass, and if anybody sits there and wants to say otherwise, they are incorrect. But one of the things that we're talking about with Sailor Moon is the fact that she is an incredibly powerful character. She's drawn as such. Her power set is not nerfed by the fact that she is a girl. Like, she has a lot of whole love and hope and things of that nature that are very feminine coded with her vibes and such, with what it is that she is putting out there. But I would like to make a point of noting your homegirl, Gail Simone, who, of course, has shouted you out as being her official Nightcrawler, and therefore I feel like nobody else matters. But Gail Simone, who, again, we would love to have on the podcast, and I'm not being weird and thirsty because I have been sitting there being a Gail stan the whole time, and AM is very, very cool, but he is also sitting there very quietly being a Gail stan himself.
I am a massive Gale fan. I've said this before, like, first time I really fell in love with her work was her Birds of Prey series.
Mm,
However, I first did not know who she was at the time, but became aware of her because I used to follow the Women in Refrigerator webpage that she had created,
yes!
where she documented how women were grossly mistreated in comics. For those who don't know, Women in Refrigerator is a reference to an issue of the Green Lantern series after Hal Jordan went crazy and they introduced Kyle Rayner as the 90s Green Lantern. And in
Yeah.
that in the second issue, his girlfriend Alex is murdered by one of Green Lantern's villains and stuffed in the refrigerator. And
Yeah.
Gail Simone saw this and thought, this seems like a thing. And she went through decades of comics and she's like, oh shit, this is a thing.
Yes. So a lot of times women have been in comics there as a means to basically further male
Progress the male
storylines.
story. Yep.
Like, what is the name of the woman who was stuffed in the refrigerator?
Alex.
Right. How many people know that?
Sorry?
I didn't. I had no idea. I just knew that Green Lantern had a girlfriend who was stuffed into a refrigerator.
Yeah, Alex only had 2 appearances before she was killed off, I think. 2 or 3. And while
Yeah.
she is occasionally referenced as a painful memory for Kyle, she has not come back beyond, I think she came back for Blackest Night when
Yeah.
Black Lantern Rings raised the dead. But yeah, she's not well recognized, but her death had a massive impact on comic stories because it led to Gail Simone creating this just list of characters who had been killed, murdered, abused, tortured. And it doesn't need to be like, you know, a full-blown murder like what happened with Alex. Barbara Gordon getting shot and crippled in Killing Joke. That's a form of fridging because she was taken out of the story for Batman and Joker's storyline.
Yeah. And even with that,
Gwen
she was taken
Stacy.
out of it because, like, Joker was trying to sit there and come at Commissioner Gordon.
Yeah, and it's like Gwen Stacy, she's considered one of the original fridgings.
Yeah.
Because, she died for the sake of Spider-Man's story, and, she's one of those characters that has actually managed to more or less stay dead. She'd been
Yeah,
resurrected in other ways, but like alternate universe Gwens or clone daughters or clones, but the one true Gwen Stacy, as far as I know, as of this recording, is still dead.
wasn't that the whole thing of just like, did Peter actually like kill her by like snapping, like shooting the web, or was she like already dead? There was a whole thing of just like, how did Gwen Stacy actually die? And that was a whole conversation about like,
Yeah, because
how did Gwen die?
there was three theories. One was that Goblin had killed her when he threw her.
Yeah.
The other one was the fall killed her.
Mm-hmm.
And the third one was when Peter caught her with the webbing, he caught her by the ankle, and it caused her neck to snap to where that killed her. Most people
Which,
agree it was the webbing that killed her because she didn't
as
hit the
much,
water,
yeah,
and it's more or less assumed that she was still alive at the time she got thrown off the bridge.
which is part of the reason why when we have Andrew Garfield catching MJ, he was sitting there sobbing and just like having a whole moment because of the fact that his Gwen Stacy in the story previously, had died because she was associated with him. Um, you know, Kyle's girlfriend, Alex, died for being associated with him.
Mm-hmm.
And
Sue
I would like
Dibney. It's like she died for being associated with the Justice League in general.
wait, I'm so sorry. I want to double check. Sue Dibney died for a bit, but she was actually like still there like for like the most of it, because I want to double check, but like the elongated man's wife didn't just like get got, right?
No, she got fridged hard. Like,
Okay.
she's, for modern storytelling, she's honestly the one that I think traumatized me the most as a reader because of the fact that her death was so unnecessary and brutal. Because, yeah, it was. I feel like we need an episode discussing identity crisis.
We will go into her, but I would like to note, podcast listeners, that whenever we mentioned Sue Dibney's birthday a couple weeks back, and I wanted to make sure that we're just like, yeah, let's make sure that we put some respect on this lady's name because AM is going to come and somehow punch me. Yeah, that is why.
Yeah.
But beyond the fact of like there is Sue Dibney and women in refrigerators and things of that nature, there are a lot of women in the actual comic verses that we've had who have been able to sit there and overcome a lot of the barriers that we've had in general. And so I would like to highlight that there are a lot of women who have made sure that we are able to have like nerd culture continue on in the real world. But I also want to move into like the comics verse a little bit and be like, yeah, also bitches still get shit done. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Wonder Woman is sitting there just being like, hey, I'm going to come to man's world, despite the fact that I could perfectly reasonably stay on Paradise Island, be, the goddess of my little thing or whatever, and live my best life. She came to man's world because she wanted to make things better.
Yep. Wonder Woman, iconic, paragon of truth, compassion, and all that. And, a lot of modern stories paint Diana as a warrior, and she is. She's 100% a warrior. But she's also a diplomat. She's a counselor. She's a friend. And there's a reason why she remains arguably the most iconic female superhero that has ever graced the page.
Yeah.
And most people will give praise to her creator, but he was not the only one who worked on Wonder Woman.
You mean the two ladies who worked on Wonder
His
Woman?
wife
And
and
by
his
that,
assistant slash lover, they had like a polyamory thing going on, and
Dr. Marsters was one
yeah.
third of. Oh, side note, by the way, as we're talking about Dr. Marsters, he was involved with the invention of the polygraph, which low-key doesn't actually work the way that law enforcement wants it to. But cycling back to the fact that Dr. Marsters and his two women and Elle Fanning's role as his one of his partners. Please continue.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. It's let's see, Elizabeth Holloway Martson and their partner Olive. They
Hmm.
were the two women that really helped define a lot of Wonder Woman's mythology, her creed, the kind of mindset she had. And granted, a lot of it, especially in the Golden Age, was very much based on also BDSM because they were very into kinky stuff. That's why the original Wonder Woman stories involve so much people getting tied up, loving submission and all that.
Yes.
But, regardless of the kink stuff, Wonder Woman was iconic and remains iconic. Say what you will about the actress, but the first Wonder Woman movie was fantastic. And then there's the Linda Carter series and Wonder Woman in
Yes.
the Justice League cartoon. Basically, any other presentation of Wonder Woman has always been something, powerful.
Look, I'm a little bit biased because of the fact that my given name is based on the fact that Wonder Woman is from the island of Themyscira, and that's where my name Kira comes from. My dad is a giant dork, and also I am a huge fan of the fact because I'm really psyched to be from where, Wonder Woman and Nubia are from. But also, as we're sitting there talking about women who are just like, kicking ass and taking names in the comics verse, how about Storm out there sitting there being like, I'm going to lead all these different groups, left, right, and center, and none of you are going to question me because I'm a literal fucking goddess, and you can try to, like, come at me, but is there anybody who's able to sit there and take Storm besides maybe Cyclops?
Jean Grey, arguably, but, she's literally a cosmic being, so. But then
Yeah.
again, Storm's a cosmic being right now, too. If anybody's reading her current solo series, Storm has ascended. She's an Avenger, she's a god, she's on, like, literal god mode right now, so. Her and Jean are, like, living their best goddesses' lives and just being like, ooh, yes, we can do whatever.
All right.
But
then, like, we also have, like, Captain Marvel, right? Like,
yeah.
even, like, if we're just, like, focusing on, like, the Carol Danvers one, right? Like, that lady is sitting there running around just being like, let me go ahead and, like, restart the entire sun somewhere
Yeah.
because
No,
I can.
that's the thing. It's like majority of, some of the best female characters are natural born leaders and powerhouses. Storm has been one of the most iconic leaders of the X-Men. Carol Danvers, she was up until recently the leader of the Avengers, and she's
Mhm.
taken on that role so many times. Wonder Woman, she doesn't often get put in a leadership primary role with the Justice League, but everyone still defers to her when they need to.
I
And
mean,
then you've got, like, Barbara Gordon leading the Birds of Prey and sometimes even the Justice League. Donna Troy as, leader of the Titans and sometimes the Justice League.
even within, like, the villains, like, Harley Quinn has a pretty substantive, like, setup of just, like, I am in charge, but I'm gonna let everybody do what it is that they're doing to a certain extent because, like, King Shark and whoever else is, like, in her kind of gang, like, and by that I mean, like, I don't remember what, like, the little dude's name is, and what is the other dude? The little,
What's his name? Dr. Psycho.
not Mixie Spitlet. What is his name?
No, Dr. Psycho.
Yes, Dr. Psycho. Like, I feel like she's really good about making sure that everybody's able to kind of go. She's good about making sure about everybody's able to go and do whatever it is that they are, like, good at within, like, that kind of vibe and such.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really cool ladies who are out there sitting there doing the thing in the comics verses, and we're gonna
Yeah, and
take
the fun thing is, I was just gonna say, it's like, and the
Go
fun
ahead.
thing is, they're complex characters, they're powerful. I mean, we didn't even, like, talk about Sue Storm just basically being the most powerful Fantastic Four member, as we saw in the movie.
Yeah, I would like to point out the fact that Sue Storm is the reason that Galactus got ass whooped. That's not English.
Are you proud of that one? Are you proud?
No, I'm not proud of that one. I pulled that one out of my ass, which I guess is what Sue did as well.
Oh.
So we're Yeah, so listen, podcast, we're take a quick break because I'm sure AM has a lot of opinions about my terrible, terrible jokes. And so we'll be back in a short bit with our thrilling conclusion. Hi, welcome back to our thrilling conclusion. So, as we are finishing this episode, it is important for me to point out the fact that, realistically speaking, women have been here the whole time. there are a lot of people, there are a lot of instances who try to pretend that women have not been a part of things the entire time. Again, I made a joke about how people say that women do not like nerds, girls don't like nerds, as we actually watch and do a lot of, not Naruto running. It is because we take showers and we don't really Naruto run like that. But
Yeah.
women as a whole are absolutely a part of nerd culture.
100%. You go to any convention, and there are so many women there who are the biggest fans, the biggest nerds. They're writing fan fiction, they're creating art, they're building cosplay, and you'll always have those neckbeards going, they're fake nerds, they're, fake girl nerds. It's like, no, they're true, they're just not being assholes about it. And they don't owe
Um,
you a 5-point presentation explaining how much of a nerd they are. Just
wait,
a reminder, it's like,
fun fact, I have actually had to do like not quite the 5-point presentation, but I have been grilled about whether or not I am able to, nerd on multiple occasions because of the fact that I am a girl, because I am a black girl, because they assume that I know nothing about anything, despite the fact that, again, my dad got annoyed with me because I lost his Wolverine mask when I was 8 years old. I'm sorry, his Wolverine, like the action figure Wolverine mask when I was 8-year-old. I don't think my dad actually had a proper Wolverine mask. Although if he did and he didn't tell me and I could have worn a cool Wolverine mask, I'm going to fight him.
I mean,
Um,
considering the fact you lost the toy one, he was probably afraid you'd lose the good one.
I'm going to go have a conversation about this, or I'm going to go ahead and, because I'm
But
grown,
yeah,
buy my
but
own
I
Wolverine mask because I am a grown adult nerd lady and I love nerd shit.
but yeah, no, it's like, that's the thing that just drives me crazy when people are going like drilling a girl to prove that they're a fan of a specific fandom. And as I say, nobody owes anybody that kind of, breath. But at the same time, it's like, if you talk with any geeky girl, respectfully,
Hmm.
they will get, like, anytime that I mention Sailor Moon, you have a dissertation of stuff that you could just talk about: mythology, backstory, characters,
I don't
and
know what you're talking about. How dare you suggest that I am like a Sailor Moon, like, knowledge base, that I have
but
not
that's
sat in there and got the whole tattoo and everything because of my
yeah.
knowledge and like affection for this one specific like media thing.
Yeah, and it's like Doctor Who. You're very similar in that regard. I mean, you've told me entire afternoons of describing Doctor Who mythology and stories and characters. So
I did
it's
pick the Sailor Moon shirt over my Doctor Who Rose shirt because I
mm,
figured that Sailor Moon would be easier. But yes, I do have Rose and I do have a lot of opinions on the various different doctors and how things have gone, and how the fact that there's a lot of people who are really, really disrespectful to Jodie and Shruti about their roles as the Doctor. But that's not what we're talking about.
yeah. Though, side note, the current Doctor is really hot.
Yes, and I'm kind of salty about the fact that there might be a prospect that I'm not going to get to see him do more doctory stuff. I will be okay because
Why
I
is it all the
have
fun
previous
doctors that
episodes.
they've been introducing are so short-lived?
Because Christopher Eccleston said, "Hey, guess what? I am not interested in doing this for more than
I
one
know, but they bring
season."
back David Tennant every 5 minutes.
That's
And I
because
like
David
David
Tennant.
Tennant. Don't get me wrong. I love David Tennant, but I'm like, I want to see some of the others, please.
I mean, I feel like Matt Smith has other things that he's doing. Peter Capaldi was already just like trying to figure out whatever it is that he was doing with like his whole Doctor Who thing, because that was the ultimate fanboy casting right there.
Oh,
But
100%.
you know what? Realistically speaking, the important part is, yes, there are a lot of women who are into a lot of nerddom things. And if maybe you would take a shower, put on some deodorant that is actual deodorant, not Axe, you might find that
And
there's
don't
a
treat
lot of
women like
women.
the enemy.
I swear we're not the enemy. We will play Settlers of Catan with you, okay? We will
Yeah.
play all of it.
And
Somebody will play Ticket to Ride with you if you ask very nicely.
and this is an important thing for everyone, no woman owes you their time, no woman owes you their respect, and no woman owes you a dissertation of their favorite fandom. Talk to them like a person, treat them respectfully, and they'll tell you about their fandom. They'll happily do it.
Oh my god, we will tell you about our fandom so hard, and if you're really, really nice about it and you learn about it, I'm just saying, like, you could probably make it really inappropriate in some ways. But we are not talking about all of the ways that you can sit there and Rule 34 a fandom with your partner because you have put some respect on her and her name. What we're going to talk about is some of the few things that are happening in the comics multiverses so that we do not get demonetized on the show so far. So we have the birthdays of Billy and Mary Baston, Captain Marvel and Mary Marvel, and that is 4/1.
Although,
I'm
sorry,
sorry, are they April 1st birthday babies?
they are. They're twinsies. Well, they were twinsies in the original stories. Now I don't think they're related anymore.
Okay.
And New 52 changed the time, everything. And
New
now they're no
52
longer
ruined a
called
lot of
Cap.
stories.
Yeah, no, they're no longer allowed to be called Captain Marvel and Mary Marvel. Shazam, and I guess Mary, and some versions also call them Captain Marvel, or no, just the Captain and Lieutenant or something like that. I'm not sure.
All right, you know what? Let's move away from people whose names don't quite make sense and shout out Jay Garrick, the Golden Age Flash. Hey, his birthday is April 3rd. Like, now, I am a big fan of Daddy Flash because all of the other Flashes are kind of a mess, and this guy is just like, look, I'm gonna just sit here and be granddad and live my best life.
He's gotten a little bit messier in recent years. We kind of found out that he had a long lost child that he didn't remember.
No,
Mm,
absolutely not. Absolutely
yeah.
not. No, I refuse to believe that there is an unfaithful Flash.
Oh no,
You
no,
know what?
he had it with his wife. Him and his wife. It wasn't unfaithful. They had a child together. She had superpowers, and then cosmic time shenanigans, and she was wiped from their memory.
I
So
will
he's still a
accept
good
that.
guy. He's just got a bit more of a messy family backstory.
Listen, the whole Flash family is a mess, but as long as he is not actually stepping out on his wife, that's all I care about. So what we can also shout out though is in the 1975 Giant Size X-Men #1, that was written by, like Lin Wayne and Dave Cockrum. And you're just like, okay, guys, why does it matter? Well, this is probably one of the biggest comics in Marvel history. Am I making too much of a deal of it? I don't know. We've got the introduction of Colossus and Nightcrawler and Thunderbird and Storm and Krakoa are all making their debut with a new X-Men squad, including Wolverine. And I would like to point out the fact that this is coming straight from Marvel.com, so I'm not making any kind of variation on a theme
Yeah.
up.
And majority of these characters have become mainstayed iconic heroes, and it was one of the most diverse superhero teams created at the time. It wasn't just a bunch of white people. We had a black woman, we had a Native American, we had a blue German, we had a Canadian. There was more
Okay,
flavor in this team.
where's Colossus from? Is Colossus the Canadian? I thought
I mean,
Peter
he's Russian.
Rasputin was Russian.
He's Russian, but
I'm just saying.
I've not had
Let's put a little
Russian
respect
fix on
on the Russian in 1975
fair.
joining the group, okay? All right.
fair.
But if we want to sit there and move away from weird Cold War conflicts, we can shift to 1996, where we have Avengers Unplugged #5, where Genisville, the son of Marvel, becomes Captain Marvel. Yeah, all right, whatever. That's
Quick
important,
shout out
blah,
to
blah,
my
blah.
friend Gil, who does Marvel cosplay. Look him up. He is amazing.
Yes, but what's really important about this episode, at least as far as I am concerned, is the fact that Monica Rambeau, a former Captain Marvel, becomes known as what? Photon. I'm very excited about this.
She will always
Monica
be my Captain
Rambeau is
Marvel.
amazing. Yeah.
It's like I love Carol. She's great, but Monica's the first Captain Marvel I was introduced to from Marvel, and I will always stand her.
And also, listen, if you've only seen the movies, there's a lot of things that Monica Rambeau has not been able to really show off. But I assure you that Monica Rambeau being your favorite Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau just being awesome as Photon, Monica Rambeau being your favorite character in the MCU, 100% justified, okay? Just gonna throw that out there. And also, it's Women's History Month. Monica Rambeau is a very important woman in Marvel history. But we have, in fact, come to the end of our podcast. I know. How is it over so soon? Well, good news. Our next episode is coming out next week. Of course, you're also more than welcome to listen to this episode if it's not fast enough. You can join our Patreon, www.patreon.com/upyournerdcredpod, where you can get solo scripts, behind-the-scenes footage, all kinds of fun, exciting things.
Nerd cred takes time to build.
But if you can figure out how to actually build that nerd cred while having to deal with wicked cramps, then maybe the men should shut up and accept the fact that women know what they're talking about.
Fair enough. And now it's time to mention that we have an Instagram, we're on Apple and Spotify and YouTube, and we're working to expand our reach. If you like the episode, make sure to rate, review, and subscribe, especially if you're trying to up your nerd cred.
You can follow us across Instagram at Up Your Nerd Cred Pod. If you're looking for me across platforms, I'm at Kira C. Davis.
And I'm at AM Diaz Art. Come yell at me about continuity errors and show me your fan art and whatnot. And
the good
if you
fan art, please.
If you have a burning question that you want us to discuss so you can up your nerd cred, make sure you like and subscribe and leave comments, and we might pick you to discuss in our segments.
Okay, so also, we've launched the Patreon, and while you should definitely follow the link in the show notes to join it, you should also get your friends to like and subscribe to the podcast too, and your family members, and your coworkers that you trust not to be weird about listening to the same podcast as you. And if there's a ticket taker at the movie theater that you're going to...
And good night, everybody.